So today, guys, is the big event. Today is when I get my greenhouse all planted up for the rest of the season. That's the tomatoes and the peppers and the aubergines and all of those good summer crops. But before I can do that, I need to make space because, as you can see, I don't exactly have heaps of space for those size of plants, you know, like 6-7 foot tall tomato plants. But my greenhouse is very adaptable. It's only 6 foot by 8 foot, so I need to be clever in how I use it. So first thing I need to do then, I'm going to empty it, give it a bit of a tidy up and a clean, and then I'll be back with you very shortly to show you my fabulous setup for growing my tomatoes and peppers over the summer season. Let's get started. There's obviously still some plants that aren't ready to go in their final homes yet because they're a bit small. That's going to be a challenge. Having Kate grown stuff this year with me has meant that we've got a whole heap extra this year. So yeah, they have to come out here just now because I need the space. So it's a bit different from and very echoey. So the last two things that need to get done, and I kind of need Kate for this, these benches are going to go out. This one isn't because it is a big solid thing that can't be moved. These two need to go out, and then I give everything a good clean, and then there's some magic that happens. Got it? Yep. So this is what the greenhouse looks like without my big side staging pieces. I always do this because with a wide angle on the camera so that you can see things properly, it makes the greenhouse look a much bigger size than it is. But this is how big my greenhouse is. So these two shelves are fixed to the walls, and that is basically my arm span. So there's only a couple of inches either side if I do this. It's 6 foot wide and it's only 8 foot long. So if I touch, I'm now touching the back wall. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm at the door. So maybe 5 paces in total long. So I maybe have to just clean it and get it sorted. Okay, it's all clean to the point where we've actually washed it all as well as sweeping it and things. You can see the benches are out and all the plants are out. Next step is these benches are going in, but not the way you think. Oh yeah, third leg. Might have to get that wee bee struggling, and I keep finding them dead, I think, because they've been in here all night. Okay, so looks totally normal. This is going on this side. Oh, what I will have to do, close that vent. Yes, please. Because this is the one that's going to have my peppers, and I like to keep them up. I don't like to put the peppers on the floor. It's a personal thing, don't know why, but I just like it that way. But I have options, which you're about to see.
Go on, you can do it.
And we'll have to make sure it's level.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not bad actually. More level than normal. Okay, these aren't very heavy duty, so we put a support. We joke it's its third leg, but we've just made the support that goes in the middle. because it's going to have big heavy plants on it.
These are peppers. Tomato.
Stage 1. Ready?
Legs away.
On this side. Stage 2. The benches actually fold flat, which means I can then have them upright for when I'm doing seeds and stuff in spring, flatten them for my massive tomato plants come summer. Okay. There you go. This is the little shelf from underneath. It just sits on top, and then my tomatoes sit on top of this. As you can see then, a whole new day, and we're almost finished planting up in here. Oh, I had to call it quits yesterday because it was just so hot and just unbearable in here, and the camera kept switching off because it was overheating. But as you can see then, my quad grows are out, and this is how I grow in my greenhouse over the summer months for my big summer plants, my peppers, my tomatoes. And at the back, that's where I grow my herbs, because they work stunningly in these things too. And there'll be a couple of aubergines going in there. But I haven't finished. And that lets me talk to you about these quad grow pots that I grow in. Because I've been using these now for about maybe 8 years. And I absolutely love them. And it's my standard now for all of my tomatoes and my peppers. And it's fab. And they work like this. I'm going to bring you down and I'll show you. You can see here, this little guy's desperate to get potted on. Look, poor wee soul. So we'll get him settled. So quad grow then. It's called quad grow because generally they come in these two parts here that are joined together by a watering pipe. So it's a whole unit that has 4 growing spaces on it. So basically these pots. Now, this bit here, this base here, this is actually a water reservoir. And each of these holds 15 litres of water. And as a lid goes on, so that it's all nice and kept, the lights kept out and all that kind of thing. Open up the middle bit so that you can add water and see if it needs topped up. And then there's holes. Pots which have holes in them, which sit in place. And here is the cool thing. They use this capillary matting material that I've spoken about before. I use this a lot in the greenhouse. But this system uses this and you use it as a wick. So I haven't cut these to size yet, but you roll it up and it goes through the pot, so through the hole in the pot, and then through this hole and down into the water reservoir. And what that means is the plant takes water from the reservoir when it needs it, rather than you watering from above and having it always wet. It's never more than damp and the plant just takes what it needs. So it is that simple. A water reservoir, a pot, and a piece of capillary matting to use as a wick. And I've had stunning results. So I'm going to get my last 2 tomatoes planted up here and I'll show you. First thing I have to do though, is I have to give these mats a good soak. There we go. You soak them before you put them in. That way this mat's not going to be dry and then basically take all the moisture out of the soil. And now I need my compost. Now, top tip, if you use this type of system, you don't want to use anything fancy in way of potting mix or compost. You want something that's not overly moisture retentive, because you don't want it holding on to lots of moisture when all the water and the nutrients the plant needs is coming from the bottom. So I'm just going to fill these pots up like you would normally, with one exception. You want to make sure that wick stays in the centre, because what we're going to do is plant the root ball of the plant against it. So this is just straight compost that I'm using. There's no mix to it or anything, just compost. One done. And I'll get this little guy in. This is my Barry's Crazy Cherry. And like I say, he's desperately been needing to be potted on. You can see he's gone all yellow. Whole plant in. Make sure he's nice and firm. Now, this is something I do when I'm planting up my tomatoes. It's nothing to do with the quadgrows. It's just generally when I'm planting tomatoes, is I nip out these bottom leaves. I just like to have as much space around the bottom of the plant as possible to let airflow get through, so that you don't encourage pests or anything like that. And there we go. That's one done. And we'll get this little guy in now. This one is my Kellogg's breakfast. He's going to be really happy to be planted as well. These little guys have just been in these small pots too long. So there we go then. Super easy. I've got 4 tomatoes planted up on this side on my flattened staging, so that gives me the full height of the greenhouse for these tomatoes to grow. Now they're quite small at the minute, but once they get bigger they're going to need support, and I do that using stakes, so that's going to be going in shortly. If you use string, then you're going to want to plant that in with the plant at this stage, but that's a whole other thing. So I've got 4 varieties down here then. I've got Barry's Crazy Cherry, I've got Kellogg's Breakfast, I have Black Crim, and I have Teton de Venus. These are my 4 varieties that I'm growing here in the greenhouse at the moment. There's another 2 plants to get planted, but I'll tell you more about that in the next video. On this side, I've got my 4 peppers. So I always grow King of the North peppers. Absolutely love them. Settled on those as a variety a few years ago, and they do stunning in my garden here in Scotland. At the minute, I've just got my tarragon and my basil, because I have found that both do stunningly well in these quadgrows or even in the smaller chilli grow units. These 2 pots are empty because I've got some grafted aubergines coming that are going to go in those. Hopefully they'll arrive today and go in there today. So that is the setup for my greenhouse. As you can see, I've still got my shelves here because I've still got a few little seedlings going that are not ready to go out yet. So they're on there for just now. But there's one last thing I need to do. When you first plant up your quadgrows, you don't fill the reservoir straight away. The first thing you do is you give the plants a really good water from the top, and then you leave that for maybe a week until that completely dries out, and then you fill the reservoir. There we go. So this is the start of the summer season then. This is how it begins for me, with the first day that I flip my greenhouse and get it ready for summer. That just leaves me this one last thing to do. And it comes from a very long tradition that Kate and I have. For years and years and years, way back to when we first started growing, every year we named a plant. You guys saw me do this recently in the single seed challenge video that I did in collaboration with Steve from Green Side Up. And I asked you guys to name 2 of my plants, and we got, if it is somewhere, Tigger, the gazania, and we had Peppy, the pepper. For those of you who haven't heard, we actually lost Steve this week. He lost his battle with cancer. It was quite fast and quite sudden, and it is just a massive loss to the whole gardening world. So in memory of Steve, for this year and every single year going forward, we're now going to have a plant in our greenhouse called Steve that we will update you guys on and keep the progress of. And what I've done for this year is Peppy the pepper from the single seed challenge that I did with Steve has been renamed, and he's now going to be Steve. And this pot will continue with us with Steve's name and his channel logo on it, and it will be part of our greenhouse every year from now on, because he was just such a stunning guy, an amazing gardener, and he just gave so much time and energy to all of us in the gardening community. So Steve, mate, this one's for you. See you folks.